Welcome to Unpacking the Athlete podcast, hosted by yours truly, Rob Martin. Today's podcast is being hydrated by Liquid IV. 1 stick of Liquid IV and 16 ounces of water hydrates you 2 times faster and more efficiently than water alone. 12 delicious, refreshing flavors to keep your hydration routine exciting. Contains 5 essential vitamins, B3, B5, B6, B12, and vitamin C. With 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks, it's made with premium ingredients, it's non-GMO and free from gluten, dairy, and soy. Liquid IV believes that equitable access to clean and abundant water is the foundation of a healthier world. Liquid IV partners with the leading organizations for innovative solutions to help communities protect both their water and their futures. To date, Liquid IV has donated over 39 million servings in 50-plus countries around the world. Get 20% off today when you go to liquidiv.com and use code UTA. That is UTA, abbreviated for Unpacking the Athlete. Use that at checkout. That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using the promo code UTA at liquidiv.com. Welcome to Unpacking the Athlete, a podcast dedicated to diving deep into what makes athletes who they are. Today's guest lives in Arkansas and has a long passion for mountain biking. He supports Tom and Stuart Walton's trail development and outdoor recreation projects for the Runway Group. He helps to plan out most of the amazing trails in the Bentonville area, and this includes over 600 miles of trails, and that number continues to grow. He also promotes mountain biking and tries to get more people on bikes, helps with cycling events, and other outdoor projects. Our guest today is Gary Vernon, who you will find riding his bike often. Welcome, Gary. Excited to have you on.
Thanks, Rob. Glad to be here.
Glad you could be here. I'm going to start with the first question, and I think it's a fun question because there are so many trails to pick from. I'd like you, if you had to only ride one trail system in the Bentonville area, what would that trail system be and why?
Yeah, that's the toughest question you can ask. I mean, it's like asking me which child would I want to hang out with for the rest of my life, you know? I usually say the last one built because, it's like we've got the best trail builders in the nation building trails every week. And, we've averaged over the past 3 years, 2 miles a week of new trail. So we always like to say every day is new trail day in Northwest Arkansas. Bentonville started with a bunch of fun, kind of machine built, flow, single track, and jump trail. And now we've got so much of that. We're really focused on hand tool, hand cut trail. And when you get into the town north of Bentonville, Bella Vista, there's bluff lines everywhere. And we've got this amazing hand cut experience that's technical. I love technical riding. The latest trail we've got kind of easing along the Little Sugar Creek in Bella Vista is my favorite right now. But that'll change when the next one's built.
Okay. So you like the technical, hand-built, school type single track?
Well, I love jump trail too. I'm an old BMXer, so I love jumping, but, love it all.
Love it all. All right. Nice. Just a quick break from the show to highlight a sponsor, and we'll be right back to the show. Laird Superfoods helps you get more out of your cup of coffee by providing fats and mushroom extracts that we love and can keep fueling you throughout the day. They have better ingredients, amazing taste, and functional benefits. It's all natural with whole food ingredients, contains naturally occurring MCTs from coconut oil, no artificial flavors, colors, or additives, no sugar from highly refined corn syrup, honest and transparent products and labels. They have functional superfood creamers, instant lattes, and prebiotic greens. Are you ready to feel more energized, focused, and supported? Go to lairdsuperfood.com and add nourishing plant-based foods to your fuel from sunrise to sunset. Use our promo code UTA15. That's UTA, the number 15, all together at checkout to save 15% off your purchase today. I was just down there and I did the full back 40 loop and I did the full sugar loop. And those are
Oh yeah,
definitely fun. I think sugar has a little more climbing overall,
that's right.
but yeah, it's good stuff.
Those ravines are deep, and you got to climb out of them.
Yes. You go down and then you go up. It's pretty
And
cool.
that's why Bella Vista, Bella Vista, which is really just the town that connects to Bentonville on the north, it was actually a retirement village and really unique. It has seven golf courses, actually six and a half now because we built a mountain bike trail on half of one. Seven lakes, and it was really promoted over the past, several decades as where you would buy a little townhome and retire there and play golf and fish. Now it is a trail town because there's 120 miles of trail because the way that the village was designed, all these homes are on top of these ridges, and then in between the neighborhoods are just these ravines that have bluff and waterfall and creeks, and they really you couldn't build on it. So we've got 120 miles of connected trail that all connect into Bentonville, into the Bentonville Square. So you can ride from downtown Bentonville into Bella Vista, and it's almost 200 miles of riding. My office is downtown Bentonville. I could leave here and ride as far as I want, which isn't 200 miles. That's too far.
it's it's amazing. Every time I'm there, I think to myself about the houses on the ridge where you're coming out or going down, and I'm like, man, if I had a house right here, I would never have to drive to a trail again. And it's like my ultimate dream to not have to drive to a trail and just be able to ride my bike out the garage door onto the trail.
Yeah, and we see the neighborhoods building their own little trails, and we try to build them as well. We try to be strategic because that's really the secret formula for what made Bentonville, what it is today is really focusing on connecting neighborhoods, building trail for all skill levels with a real big focus on making fun flow trails that a new rider can feel safe on. And that has automatically created this ridership. Because when I moved here 20 years ago, 2003, I was one of the half dozen mountain bikers in the region. We had to load up and go hours away to get on a mountain bike trail. But now everybody rides. You'll see people of all ages on our trail at all times, male and female. It's a lot of fun to see because it's at unlocking, if you build a trail along a paved greenway, which is the All American that connects to downtown square, that All American follows the Razorback Greenway, the paved trail. And so if you want to just do a few hundred yards on a dirt trail to see what it's like, you can get back on the pavement. Or if you want to watch your children, if you're staying on pavement, you can watch your kids ride the dirt. And it's just got families out active, and it's been a lot of fun to see that just grow the sport. I mean, now it's like if you're living in Bentonville, you've got a garage full of mountain bikes. Doesn't matter who you are.
I love it.
Yeah.
What would you do for a living if you were not a cyclist and so involved in the mountain biking?
Well, I had a great job at Walmart. I started in high school building bikes for Walmart, saving up for a 1985 CR 125 dirt bike. But I stayed there. I went through college and stayed there because it was, a good company. And I got to do several different careers within Walmart. But my last 10 years, I was actually a director in the environmental division doing some really fun sustainability projects, recycling programs, and just all kinds of work, for that large company until I met a 23-year-old Tom Walton who had started building a couple of miles of trail in Bentonville. I ended up being the volunteer president of our local mountain bike club and maintaining the trails. And Tom would drag me into projects and send me to international mountain bike association conferences. And I looked down one day and so many of my emails were bike projects for Tom and I'm at Walmart trying to do my regular job. I had to make a decision, and Tom hired me to do this. But I certainly would be doing that. I'd be working in the environmental division at Walmart or some other place, and doing those fun projects.
Nice. Let's go back and talk about where you grew up and what you did for fun as a kid.
Well, I grew up in Joplin, Missouri, which is just an hour north, of Bentonville. I watched like most kids in the '70s. I grew up in the '70s. I watched On Any Sunday, Steve McQueen, that movie about motorcycles, and it had the BMX racing on there. So I got into BMX and had a little dirt bike too. So I was ate up with two wheels, but really got into the BMX in the neighborhoods, building jumps and all that. But started racing. My first race, ironically, was down here in Arkansas, Springdale, which is about 30 minutes south of Bentonville. In like 1980 was my first
Oh,
BMX race, and raced till I bought that CR 125 and started racing in '85 on dirt bikes. But that BMX, anybody that's raced BMX or rode BMX as a kid, it's just the fundamentals that it teaches you just carries over. And in the motocross, it was a really good base. And then when I had a buddy in like '89 show up on a Diamondback mountain bike, and I jumped on it, it felt so good. It felt like my dirt bike, but it's a bicycle, and so I was hooked from about 89 or 90 on mountain biking and started racing those things all throughout, since then. But still ride motorcycles. I've got a gas trials motorcycle, which I compete on. I've got a Husqvarna, dirt bike. And then I've got a KTM 890 adventure bike, which is my latest addiction that we go out and, we have 96,000 miles of gravel road in Arkansas, and it is amazing, amazing gravel with the Ouachita Mountains and all the mountain ranges in the Ozarks. So it's wonderful for gravel cycling. It's wonderful for anything that you want to ride gravel on. But we ride our adventure bikes out and kind of scout out different routes for the bikes and have a good time.
it sounds like heaven if you ask me.
It is.
So you've always been on the bike. Do you remember your first BMX race?
Yeah. I remember the first time I went down to Springdale and just watched, and was jumping and riding the track and just was really amazed at the group of kids and the bunch of kids that just were like-minded like me that wanted to jump and play on BMX bikes, and it was amazing. So the next time I went down there, I raced, and then a group of my buddies from Joplin, we would build jumps and all that. We've been doing that for years, but we all got into racing and bought the helmets and started building our bikes up a little better, and it was just really fun to travel down. My buddy's mother had a Chevy Love pickup, which was a tiny pickup, and we'd throw the bikes in the back of it and sit in the bed of the truck and drive 2 hours. It was 2 hours back in those days down the little two-lane highway to get to Springdale, but had a great time.
That's cool. What triggered you to get into the motorsports? Like what got you on the motorcycle?
Watching on any Sunday, and my dad's buddy had a motorcycle shop in Joplin that had Mako motorcycles, and dirt bikes and Boltaco and all that. I mean, I just was ate up with motorcycles. BMX racing was my way to get into motorcycle racing. And when I got that job in high school at Walmart, that was purposely to get a steady income to buy just to get $900 down on a $1,800 125 Honda, and that's what I did, and then started racing it.
So you've raced BMX, you've raced dirt bikes. Have you done any mountain bike racing?
Oh yeah, I raced cross country throughout the '90s and into the 2000s, but man, I really like enduro. Enduro really kind of I discovered that 5 or 6 years ago. I love enduro racing because you can ride with a pack of your friends, even if you're different skill levels. It's a social event. You can ride from stage to stage and just hang out, take turns going through the stage, and then catch up with each other and talk about the stage. And it's just such a social event instead of like hammering on a 50-mile endurance ride and you're by yourself and you're suffering the whole time. I just love enduro.
You're the second guy that has piqued my interest. I've kind of thought that maybe I'd like to try an enduro race just to see how it is because everyone talks about how much fun it is, you know.
It
So
is.
maybe
It's a party.
it's a party. All right, maybe I'll have to put one on my schedule for this year. So enduro's where it's at, you think?
Well, that's controversial. Everybody keeps adding miles to the events. The gravel races continue to get. I mean, what are we going to do? 400 miles pretty soon on it. I mean, that's too far for this guy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even with the cross country, I like 90 minutes of racing.
Yeah,
I don't need to do 4 hours on the mountain bike.
Uh-huh. Yep. I do like the team racing. When you have like a 6 or 12 hour and you've got a bunch of team members and you can kind of hang out and socialize. It's all about socializing. When you get up to my age, I mean, it's all about really enjoying the bike, and the ride and the day. And sure, push yourself a little bit, but
Yeah.
I've got nothing to prove anymore.
I actually did one a group team race for the first time this year, and it was a lot of fun, I have to
Yeah.
say. So I think we're going to put more on the schedule.
Hmm.
Definitely a fun time. Maybe just a little bit of gear shift here. Does the runway group plan to continue to build more trail systems like they have, or are they going to shift and maybe maintain and change up current trails because you guys have so many trails? What's the plan there?
You know, we set out to kind of re-envision a 5-year plan and update that on an annual basis to keep updating it. And we're going to continue to improve what we have. We're going to continue to maintain what we have. But as my role evolves into more outdoor recreation, we're going to do other things. But first, on cycling and trails, we've got enough miles. We could stop building right now. But we look at it, from 10,000 feet, and what don't we have? And one thing we don't have is that gravity park, lift access gravity park, and it's no secret that we're looking at the Ouachita mountain range south of Bentonville that could have up to 1,400 feet of elevation, and it would be a 12-month a year, purpose-built gravity bike park. It wouldn't be converted into skiing in the winter because it doesn't snow down there. So we could build a lift for bikes and be able to ride that 12 months a year and have a downhill World Cup, have an Enduro World Series. I mean, it could all happen. So that's one thing we're focused on. We're also focused on, building infrastructure around the state of Arkansas. We really are excited about how NICA continues to be a positive impact on our state, and we want to build infrastructure where communities are wanting to support a NICA program in their schools. We know that more and more challenges for kids, with the screens and the virtual world that we're entering, we got to get kids outside. We got to get adults outside. And there's nothing better, even if you have a almost true to life virtual experience at your desk with goggles and maybe even a moving chair, there's nothing better mentally or physically than getting out in nature. So we are getting kids introduced to bicycling in kindergarten, by partnering with the Strider Foundation and getting these kids to learn how to balance on a bike in kindergarten, first grade. And if you've seen the Striders that they have today, you can actually bolt on a crank with one bolt. There's a sprocket already on the rear of the bike. You can bolt on a pedal system. And I've seen kids who've never ridden a bike before learn how to balance in just a few, 20-minute program. And then you bolt on a set of pedals and they're pedaling. So we learned the hard way with our school programs that if you try to get a 12-year-old to learn how to ride for the first time in PE class, it is really embarrassing when their peers are watching them struggle. So let's teach them all in kindergarten, first grade. That way, this big investment in trails will have future users. And we see the industry starting to understand, the bicycle industry needs to focus on kids. But even more than that, the motorcycle industry needs to focus on getting kids on bikes in kindergarten as well, because they're future customers. If they don't ride a bicycle, they're not going to be buying a motorcycle. So we just see that as a way to, a healthy, both mental and physical, healthy future for everybody.
Yeah, that's a really good point with the world we're in with screens and video games. If you're not going to get kids on bike to start, who are your customers going to be when they get older? Because they're going to be stuck inside in virtual world. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. I like the I like the downhill idea because when I was there the last time, I don't remember who I ran into, but they were talking about the only thing really missing that we have missing is downhill. We've got downhill guys that come here that love it here, but we just don't really have a downhill for them. So that would be awesome.
Yep. And we've got some fun places to get a little gravity in. Eureka Springs to the west, or I'm sorry, to the east, about 45 minutes. There's a shuttle gravity park, and it's near 400 foot of elevation, and it's got a bunch of wonderful trails. There's a place called the Great Passion Play, which is about 700 acres of hill country in Eureka. That is actually was actually it's a ministry where they have an outdoor amphitheater where they do the Christ play, But Kent Butler, who runs that place, called us, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago and had an idea to put trails there, and we partnered with him. They're open to the public for free, so we built a bunch of trails over there with Kent, and it is some of the coolest enduro style trails you'll ride around here. There's actually a little section where you dive through a hole in a bluff and then come out the other side, and
Oh,
I think we like you get reborn or whatever, you kind of get, I think we call it Heaven's Gate, where you go through this little portal.
nice. We we were just there, and we drove right past it, and I just thought it was a church.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know there were mountain bike trails there until we left, and my wife was like, "That Passion Play place was like, there's like some good stuff there we missed out on because we just thought we thought it was like a retreat or something for the
That
church."
that is actually on our in our past Arkansas State Enduro series. That has always been a favorite destination for the enduros. Jagged Axe, Alex Scott built a lot of those trails, and he's really good at making those narrow, steep, janky little trails, and they're a lot of fun to ride.
And I know Lake Leatherwood's right there too. And I mean, if the shuttles weren't running when I was there, but I rode up and down a few times and did, I think, 3 different trails. And personally, I think that their ratings aren't what they are. I think like the green is like a blue and the blue is like a black. I don't know. I felt that they were a little tougher than the ratings of the trails in Bentonville.
You're spot on. I mean, it's always subjective, you know. But no, that Rock Solid built that system for us. That the trails in like Leatherwood, there's been cross country trails there since the late '90s, but we hired Rock Solid to come in and build those 7 gravity lines with those stone hub areas, and that's been a big hit over there, and it's really helped kind of grow the cycling tourism for Eureka. And those hubs, if you noticed, that's kind of our theme around Oz is having these elevated hub platforms. Started with the hub at Kohler, that 20-foot metal and wood platform that you can roll into that first jump at trail speed. Eureka's got those 2 stone, looks like Mayan temples where
Yeah.
you can get up there and roll in. And then there's a newer one. It's a castle hub at Slaughter Pen where you actually kind of ride up this circular ramp to the top, and then you have these drawbridges that are kind of down ramps, and then you're at trail speed for that first feature. So that's how we maximize our low elevation. And it's really been a big hit because those hubs end up being social gathering spots. And it also helps you, the best way to learn how to jump is hitting the same jump or set of jumps over and over and over. And when you have short runs where you can session it over and over and over, you learn you kind of recalibrate how to jump. And I mean, that's how we did it back on the BMX bikes. We'd build 1 or 2 jumps in the neighborhood and hit that thing 1,000 times, and that's how you learn to jump.
Absolutely. I remember coming in. I heard about the castle lines, but we were coming in on the highway, and I just see this big flag and this hub, and I'm like, we got to go there. We got to
Yeah.
go there. And it's funny, on the opposite side of the highway, almost, is where they have the short track pit
Yes.
races,
Yes.
which are fun. So, I mean, you guys got it going on there. It's
You got to come Memorial Day weekend. We're going to have Bike Fest in a new venue just south of our Kohler bike park. And Kenny Belay's got a big festival coming on. And our Willie, Ryan Williams, we've got a bunch of dirt jumps that he's going to be coming in from Australia and doing all kinds of fun tricks, and whoever else shows up to ride. These dirt jumps are going to, I mean, they're huge. You're going to be getting 20 plus feet of air. And we've got a dual slalom course at Kohler. And so we're going to have a dual slalom fun event, which in one evening, and there's just going to be events all weekend. But Memorial Day weekend is going to be the time to be here for Bike Fest for sure.
I was just actually talking with some of my buddies and trying to coordinate coming. back down that weekend. So if it works out, that'll be awesome.
Well, back to your original question. If you were to say, hey, look, if with all the miles of trail you have, if you just had to ride in one area, where would you ride? It'd be Kohler. Have you been to Kohler?
I love Kohler. I love
Yep.
Thunderdome. I love the dual slalom. That's
Yep.
awesome. And then the backside, you've got chunky, like there's like soft rock and hard rock, and then you've got you got two other awesome jump lines, and I mean, I, I, it's amazing there. I get so excited.
Well, that was a neat project. That started design in 2015, and I was lucky enough to come on board, and be part of that from the start. And I remember riding through that valley probably 3 years earlier than that, probably 2012, with Tom Walton, and he was kind of talking about putting trail there. But 2015, we had a group of architects, trail designers, artists, just talking about how can we make this 320-acre piece of property more, something special. There's an old barn and a homestead right in the middle that Oscar and Esther Terrell had built their home there in 1930. So we wanted to preserve the history of that barn, but also it kind of came up out of the design roundtables was let's build a restaurant, coffee shop right there in the middle. And you cannot drive to that Kohler Cafe. You have to bike or walk or whatever. And that was kind of a risky move. That could have been a really expensive project to build, and then nobody can turn a profit there. But it actually was completed and ready to go like December 19, right before the pandemic. So we had to put it on hold until we figured out we could open it up. And a local entrepreneur, Mark Bray, has Airship Coffee, and he's leasing that cafe, and he's got coffee in the morning, food, and beer. And he opened November of 2020, going into winter. And I asked him, I'm like, well, what are your hours going to be like? Just 3 days a week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or half a day Sunday? And he said, nope, it's got to be open 7 days a week because people are going to, make that trip all the way to the center of Kohler. You got to be open. So what we didn't count on is, there's a greenway going through the center of Kohler, and every morning the mothers with strollers and the kids on striders with them would make their way down there and have their little meetups, and then throughout the morning, your bikers and joggers and hikers would come there. So you can go there any day of the week, and it's just packed with people getting their coffee or having a beer, having lunch. It's really been special, and just having that vibe. It feels like you're in the middle of a national forest when you're down there, and then you pop out in the middle of that valley, and there's a restaurant. It's really unique.
It was packed when we went by when we were there. I was surprised because there's, like you said, there's no road there. It's just it's just there.
But man, what makes Bentonville special is this is more than just, this is not a family foundation writing a check and telling a city go do something. This is an entire community that's, from our park director, David Wright, the Bentonville Parks, to our Visit Bentonville tourism director, Kayleen Griffith. She got it early when I was just a volunteer president of our local club, and we wanted to do events. She would help fund them, and she was smart enough to put these events in the cycling media early on, and so people recognized Bentonville, a decade ago, that something's happening there. But the volunteer groups that are here, we have 500 people who adopt trails throughout the region and help maintain them. We have a nonprofit group, the Trailblazers. Aaron Rushing is the executive director, and his team helps us with project management, maintenance of trails. So there's a lot of just core stakeholders. Women of Oz is a women's group that has a couple of hundred women members that ride and teach others to ride. And I mean, there's just so many things that are happening here. Nat Ross, Nat Ross, world champion endurance racer. He lives here with his wife, Amy Ross, and Nat and Kyla Templeton has started Bike School Bentonville, which is teaching kids, from 7 to 18 how to mountain bike race and train. And there's just so many things that add to the experience when you're here, and just people are joyful that live here because we have so much fun. It's just, it's hard to explain. And I can ramble on and people could listen and say, yeah, I'm sure they don't believe it. But when you come here, it's pretty unique. And we actually have Sissy Parsh from Germany. She's a journalist for all kinds of mountain bike magazines in Germany. I met her in Scotland at a conference last November, and I did a presentation on Bentonville and Oz trails, and we spent a few days together riding. And she had not heard of Bentonville, so she started doing her research, and she's here this week, and it's been fun to see her. She's been kind of immersed in the local culture and meeting everybody, and she's fallen in love with Bentonville. But you have to be here to really get it. You know that. You've been here.
Oh yeah, been there 3 times, and every time we every time we go there, I'm trying to talk this family into moving there, and I just I've got two that won't agree to it, but I just
Yeah.
there's something special going on there. I mean, there really is. You got to go there, and once you go there, you'll know that we're not lying about it. It's just it's an amazing place to be. It really is. I could definitely see myself living there.
Well, 20 years ago when I moved here, it was a corporate town at Walmart. You came here for a job with a corporation, either Walmart or one of the vendor networks that supported Walmart. And so people didn't know. And this was a neat little town then, but it was nothing like it is today. But people came here just as a tour of duty. Let's do a couple of years supporting the vendor, whatever vendor it is for Walmart. If we came here and spent 2 years in Bentonville, we can get promoted, go back to Chicago or whatever. But now people move here even without a job, just to be near the trails and or work remotely. It's really amazing for me to see it because again, 20 years ago, we saw people just come here for a short while and then go back to find a real place to live, and it's fun seeing that flip.
Yeah, people stay now. They want to be there. You guys are booming. The houses, the new neighborhoods going in. It's growing, and it's pretty cool to see actually.
Well, we got the Crystal Bridges Museum as one of the number one American art museums in the country, and now the Momentary, modern art and the music scene, the influence there, and just the overall art culture that's popped in here. People are coming here and living artists or musicians and all types of cultural improvements to make this really a fun place. It's not just a place to ride; it's a place to live and thrive.
Yeah, I mean, you've got golf courses, like you said, for people. You've
Mhm.
got the climbing gym, Climb Bentonville for people. I mean, you've got rocks to climb outside, so go learn indoors. And I'm sure well, I know there are places to go rock climb around the area too. So that's another thing that you can do outdoors.
Well, and that's what I was alluding to earlier. The formula of Bentonville for mountain biking, bringing mountain biking into town, having it for all skill levels, that formula worked for mountain biking, but it also works for any other form of outdoor recreation. So we've already started with rock climbing. There's, all the bluffs that are available up and down the corridor. Springdale, which is just 30 minutes down the road from Bentonville, has a really neat trail system at Fitzgerald Mountain, but there's also 30-foot climbing walls that are really unique. And Dennis Nelm's a good friend of mine is kind of leading that work. He's a very experienced climber, and he's actually building urban climbing areas. We're piloting kind of the all-American trail version of rock climbing at Fitzgerald Mountain, where he's building this wall, and he's partnering with the Access Fund and our state volunteer group, Arkansas Climbers Coalition. They're building this really neat outdoor beginner to intermediate climbing area with bolted walls and hardware hanging. And all you got to do is bring a harness and a rope and you can climb. And it's really going to be special. And with that pilot, we're going to replicate that around the state where there's rock and also in our state parks, build some really unique climbing areas. And we're also doing it on paddling. Bella Vista has Little Sugar Creek that flows through there, and that's the name of the trail system. But it also is a wonderful creek that you can stand up paddleboard or kayaks. And so we're building that out. Well, there'll be places to put in and get out, and an operator to be able to shuttle you back and forth. So if you bring what we figured out, if you bring it to town where you can do it on lunch or do it after work, then you get more people involved in it, and you build it where it's really accessible and it's not scary. You get beginners to try it for the first time, and then you get people outdoors. And then they can go down to the Buffalo River or Richland Creek, and that's really a serious paddle. They can do that, and then the Illinois River over in Siloam Springs, Arkansas, there's going to be a whitewater park that'll open up this summer, and that is a serious whitewater park that the professionals will come and enjoy. So we're excited about that.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Yeah, you're making me really want to move down there, Gary.
Come on.
What are the temperatures in the summer?
Hot and sticky,
So you get
no,
pretty humid?
that August is a pretty humid month. The last couple of years, it's rained, enough to kind of cool it off. But I'm not going to lie, if you're not used to humidity, August is the month to maybe travel. But we get used to it. We ride. You just start riding in the mornings.
Yeah.
But September, October, and November are so wonderful that like in this time in the spring, like this week has been fantastic in the 50s. It'll get up to 80 this weekend. It's kind of a heat, it'll kind of heat up a little bit, but it'll dip down to the 70s. But starting in June, we'll be in the 80s, and in July, 90s, and in August, and it'll be humid.
Okay.
But we get our rain events come through and our cold fronts. Definitely worth it. And the winters you can ride year round. So, January, February we'll have an Arctic front come through for a couple of days or a week, but then you can ride all winter.
And that's amazing. But we do have humidity up here in Michigan too, so I kind of know what it feels like. And when we were down there for the 1 week we were down there recently, the temperatures were around 60 a couple days, there was 70 a couple days, and then we had one day that was about 88, but it was dry. And then
Yep.
the next day, the humidity rolled in just for one day, and it was about 75, 80, and it felt like it did here. It just was
Yep.
sticky.
Yep. I think you brought that down with you, didn't you?
Probably. What's been your favorite mountain bike along the way?
Oh, well, I've been riding Evil Offerings for many years. That's my favorite trail bike, without a doubt. The Allied Bike Company, that Tom has sort of invested in. They actually hand build carbon bicycles in Rogers, Arkansas. It's a town next to Bentonville. Are you familiar with the Allied? They've
Yep.
been building. They started with road frames, and then they built the Able, the gravel bike, and they just came out last year with the BC 40 for the back 40, trail
Okay.
system. But it's a 120 full suspension cross country weapon, and I've got one of those, and that is a lot of fun when you're doing a big loop, on your cross country trail. There's nothing better than that bike, and it's a Ferrari. I mean, it is a hand built, the custom paint machine. It's a great bike.
We were down there also with other people that we know at the same time. My wife and I, we help coach. We don't have NICA here, we have MISCA, so it's the same thing. So we
Oh
work
yeah,
with younger kids and whatnot. And we were down there with some groups of younger kids, and we didn't get to, but they were able to go on. So one of our coaches bumped into the owner, just started talking, and he said, "Hey, come by tomorrow. I'll give you a tour." So they got to go in and see how everything works, and just like you said, handmade, custom paint jobs. It's a pretty cool operation they've got going on there.
absolutely. And there's, Drew and his team run a tight ship, and the quality is excellent on all their products. And it's built in the U.S. That's really cool to be able to say that.
In the U.S. and right there in Arkansas.
hmm Now,
So
when you were here, have you been to the Rail Yard Bike Park in Rogers? Did you go
we
there?
did
The Rail
not go
Yard?
there this year, but we were there the last time we were there. We went to the rail yard, and that's definitely a fun area. You've got man built flow tracks. You've got three, I think, different jump lines to progress, or is it four?
Four?
Okay,
Four?
and then you've got some dirt downhill jump lines too off in the back. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of fun to do there.
Well, the Rail Yard Progressive Trail Designs built that and it opened in 2015. It was dirt. It was kind of like a little dirt jump park with a slope style and a session zone to learn how to jump. And because there's a railroad going through downtown Rogers, it had a railroad theme, so it was called the rail yard. And there's actually a box car you can ride through, and it is a lot of fun. But that dirt, that clay, every time it would rain, a lot of maintenance. It would be closed because of rain. And then we started working with Claudio at Velo Solutions on building pump tracks, asphalt pump tracks. And we really learned pretty quickly that riders of all types love those pump tracks, and you can ride it on a $50 bicycle because you don't need an expensive bike to ride on that smooth asphalt. So it's like, what if we were to take that high maintenance dirt jump area and just have Velo Solutions American Ramp Company, who's their partner in the U.S., come in and just asphalt it. That was another one of those risky moves. Are the dirt snobs going to come with their torches and light that place on fire? And so we did it. We worked with the city of Rogers and partnered on some funding and brought Velo Solutions in, and they asphalted the whole thing, put some rubberized playground material for some of the landers just for safety. Man, that has been a home run. It's got LED lighting, so you can ride till 10:30 at night there. And if it rains, you can ride it in the rain, stay off the wood, wall rides, but you can ride it an hour after it rains. When the sun comes out, it's all dry. So that is your. If you're ever here and you want to jump and it's raining, rail yard is ready to go. But Mike Hucker, who's one of the premier dirt jumpers, and R. Willie and all those guys, had them ride it and just tell me the truth. What do you think of this? So they loved it. They absolutely loved it because Progressive Bike Ramps, which is American Ramp Company, who partnered with Velo Solutions to build all that, they've nailed the jumps. The lips are great. There's no maintenance, so the lips are always the same. When you hit it, it's going to feel the same every time. You have such good traction. There's actually less accidents and sliding out and stuff. So it's safe. It's fun. It's a great place to learn how to jump again, hitting the same jump over and over. So really cool place to hang out.
I agree. And the day we went there, we spent the whole day there.
Yep.
Because that's how much fun it was. We got there probably 9:30 in the morning, rode, had lunch, then rode again, had dinner, and then finished up another hour or so, and then we headed off. But it was a it was a good day.
That's awesome. We partner with IMBA, International Mountain Bike Association, and we do a trail lab every quarter, which is, we always got phone calls from communities asking how to build trails and how to build trail in their community. So we actually formally put together these 2-day events called trail labs and bring people in. And I always tell the groups that come in that, if there's one thing that I would think about if you're building, just starting with a trail system, build a rail yard and then connect it with single track. And that is a great, first of all, it's a good place to learn your skills, a good hub to be able to start and finish your ride on the mountain bike trail. But I'm a big fan of that rail yard.
Yeah, I like it a lot as well. I like that idea of having it connected with single track so you can get to it without having to drive there.
Right.
That's cool. So maybe let's talk a little bit more about you again. And you did BMX and you did some mountain biking. Who influenced you into those sports? Or was it just you decided that was what you're going to do?
Funny story. My dad, who grew up in Joplin, one of his best buddies, who was actually his best man in his wedding to my mother, is Larry Holt. And Larry Holt has been a famous stuntman in Hollywood. I mean, he's done Star Wars. He did any Clint Eastwood movie in the modern, Gene Hackman. He did a lot of those movies in the '70s. The $6 Million Man. Did you ever see those episodes? That was one of his starting roles, was a stuntman in those movies. But anyway, I had these big ideas as a kid because Larry had come to town and show us pictures of, he worked with Paul Newman and all the top actors of the day. I was going to go with him, go learn the trade with Larry and be a motorcycle stuntman. Because, again, watching all, back in the '70s on any Sunday, that was the influential movie that started the motorcycle craze, and even the BMX craze, because it had all that BMX, in the first few minutes of the thing. That iconic movie started the whole, just like, believe it or not, Deliverance started the paddling craze. The Burt Reynolds Deliverance movie where they were paddling you know, that started the whitewater and canoeing phase in the 70s. So, everybody's watching these movies. But after that movie, I really got into the two-wheel world and wanted to be a motorcycle stuntman. But we lived in a modest community in a modest home, so I got a bicycle, at first, and raced BMX. But just fell in love with it, and that's my buddies and I in our neighborhood would travel all around the town, and we had little jumps set up everywhere and drainage ditches, and terrorized the town of all hours and jumped. And man, it kept me out of trouble. Like when I continued to race through junior high, and when other friends that I went to school with were doing things they shouldn't be doing, I was focused on my racing, and then again flowed into motocross, and that's why I love, seeing kids get into mountain biking and BMX here, because I know it's just a healthy sport that gives you kind of a clean outlook on life and a reason to stay fit.
Yeah. How many hours do you currently spend on the bike a week?
I mean, I get so busy at work, and I get on my motorcycles. I don't know. I mean, some weeks I'm riding 3 or 4 days a week, and some weeks I'm not. It just ebbs and flows. At my age, I'm 56. I know if I go a week without riding, it hurts me. I gotta get back in there and ride. I can still jump. You got to stay. You got to keep your timing and stuff down. So I definitely go out. We have so many fun flow trails with jumps. It's easy to keep your flow going. When you ride those 30 to 50-mile mountain bike rides, that hurts a little more. I'll tell you. And like we've got a big mountain enduro this weekend at Mount Nebo, one of our state park monument trails. That's going to be my kickback in the training. I'm going to train on that event. But that's another thing. The monument trails. Have you been to any of our state park monument trails?
Is
It's
Hobbs one?
Hobbs is one. Yes.
We did Hobbs the last day we were there this past time, and I hadn't been on the new trails. The last time I was there, I think you were telling me that you guys were going to add on to that area. You were talking about
Yep.
it when we did our
Yep.
sunset cruise at Lake Leatherwood. And so I told the wife we had got to go back there and do that. So we went there, and going along that lake in the edges down in the beauty, the flowers were popping. I mean, it's beautiful there. I have not been to. I think you just said Nebo.
Yeah, Mount Nebo. That's another must see trail. I mean, the sunsets from the top of Mount Nebo. We know it's almost 1,000 foot of elevation above the Arkansas River Valley, and that we're having a big mountain enduro there this weekend. That's got 25 miles of trail and rock solid and jagged axe built the trails there. That whole monument trail partnership with the state parks of Arkansas state parks was kind of a big moment for the movement here as well, because we have trail counters that count ridership in each trail system, and we had some IMBA epic trails out in the middle of our national forest that the main mountain bike trail systems we had in the state 20 years ago were IMBA epics, and you would have to from here you'd have to load up and drive an hour and a half to get to a trail, and it's in the middle of nowhere, and it was a tough trail to ride. Well, we had trail counters on those trails. As soon as Bentonville and other urban trails popped up, nobody was riding those IMBA epics, and we would get miserable counts, especially in the summer months. Nobody was going there, so it was like, okay, let's not build any more of those. Let's not build in the middle of nowhere. But it was like, what about state parks? Because some of the best terrain, in the state is in state parks. There's 52 state parks. So really, about a couple months after I started my role for Tom and Stewart, a new state park director, Grady Spann, was hired, and we met up and started talking about partnering up and got a trail committee together with some stakeholders, and we started talking about what could we call these trails, and Monument Trail became a brand. And then again, we bring in the best trail builders in the nation to help create the best experience on a state park, and using the bluffs, using the rock, the stone. And there's 4 monument trails now. There's Mount Nebo, there's Devil's Den, which is just south of here, 45 minutes. And there's Hobbs about 45 minutes east. And then there's Pinnacle Mountain down in Little Rock. And those trails on their own or destination, you could go there and spend a 3 or 4 day weekend and just ride. They're just wonderful.
I wanted to get to Devil's Den and Nebo, but just, the time, you run out of time because there's so much to do. So,
Yep. Yep. That's by design. We want you to keep coming back every year, you know?
yeah,
I mean, really, if you look at the entire state, and if we don't count mountain bike trail unless it's really worth riding, and we're about 1,200 miles across the state of quality mountain bike trail worth your trip.
absolutely. Why do you love mountain biking and bikes, and what keeps you going with it?
I can't go to a gym and get on a treadmill and or just I can't go inside and work out. So my way of working out is getting outside on a trail and pedaling hard or holding onto a set of handlebars on a motorcycle and pounding through a single track or on a track with my son. My son loves mountain biking, but he also loves motorcycling and he loves going, racing motocross. So that's what we do together. He won't ride mountain bikes with me because I can't ride Bentonville trails without stopping and talking to everybody I know. So he gets very tired of riding mountain bikes with me. So our time together is on the motorcycle.
Gotcha. That's funny.
Yeah,
He gets tired of all the stopping.
like he rolls his eyes and he takes off and just keeps riding.
Do you guys have any other cool events related to mountain bikes up and coming? I know you
You know,
said
the,
Memorial
the,
Day, and then you've got something this weekend at a monument trail.
well, Lifetime has partnered with us, and we've got the Big Sugar Classic, which is a mountain bike race the weekend before, and then the gravel race the weekend after, that third week in October. And that is going to be huge. And then in between those two weekends, the People for Bikes organized nonprofit is actually putting on an industry conference, and it's focused on the future of e-bikes. And we support e-bikes, class one e-bikes in all of our trails. We believe in e-bikes. We know that if they're ridden responsible in their class one, then it's really a way that people can ride way into their elder years. I mean, I'm 40 years older than my son, so an e-bike's going to keep us hanging out together on the trails because he doesn't ride with me in Bentonville, but we do go to Colorado, or we're going to go to Whistler this year again, and we go to destinations together on the mountain bike. So when I'm hopefully if I can still ride in my mid 80s, an e-bike will keep me at least on the same trail as him.
Right.
So and any grandchildren I have, we know that e-bikes are good for the sport. The industry continues to evolve those and make them more interesting.
So your son's about 15, 16?
He just turned 17.
Okay, 17. I've got a son. He's about to turn 16, so I figured we were pretty close there.
Yep.
Yeah, nice. What out of the four monument trails would you go to if you could only go to the one?
Mount Nebo.
Nebo?
Yep.
Okay.
Mount Nebo is special because you have these scenic views over the Arkansas River you can see forever. And the Oz Trails logo is that sunset with the colors.
Yep.
And there's these cabins that were built in the 1930s, rock cabins that are placed on the edge of this 1,000-foot elevated plateau. That's the top of Mount Nebo State Park. And so you can ride all day, sit on your back patio of your cabin and watch the sunset, drinking a beverage of your choice, and it is pretty magical. And then you can get up at daylight and go to Sunrise Point and watch the sunrise, and then go at Sunset Point, and watch the sunset. It's a physical and mental therapy that I can't imagine anywhere else in the state being any better.
Man, that's awesome. I'm
Yeah,
going to put that one on my list.
yeah. And we haven't talked about Austrails. Austrails is a brand. It's a regional brand. Where that came from was 2015. We were building trails quite rapidly around the region, and we didn't want, Kayleen Griffith had done such a good job of promoting Bentonville trails. We didn't want to have Bentonville compete with Eureka Springs, compete with Fayetteville, and so on. So it was an idea to let's just create a destination region, and we brought in a marketing company to take a look at our trails. And they spent a few weeks here, and they came back with a bunch of ideas, and some of them weren't very good, but they came back with Oz trails because we're in the Ozark Mountains, Ozark Plateau. And so it was a play on that. So Oz Trails became that Northwest Arkansas mountain bike region, and that's the Oz Trails. It's been a strong brand, and it's
Yeah,
actually created kind of a regional pride because people now will wear their Oz Trails jersey or shirt to other destinations and feel proud about where they're from. It's pretty fun.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's I'm telling you, for anyone listening, it's an amazing place, and if you haven't been there, you have to go. Put it on the schedule. If you were to give advice to young kids that wanted to get into mountain biking, what would it be?
Take some lessons, and learn the fundamentals. I really believe in that 20-inch BMX bike. If you're really going to learn bike handling skills, it's that small, twitchy feel of a BMX bike. As you get into the bigger wheels, especially a 29 mountain bike, it slows everything. Everything you learn on a small wheeled BMX bike, it is in slow motion on a mountain bike. So if you're talented on a small wheel bike, the mountain bike's easy. And you'll see it. Like we have a bunch of kids here that race BMX, and they jump on a mountain bike, and they're expert handlers right out of the gate. It's fun to see that. So, I try to give any of the local kids that want to be professionals, like definitely encourage that, but also have a backup plan, have a end of career plan. What are you going to do? Once your competitive lifespan is over, are you going to be in the industry? Or I would certainly get a college degree and have something to fall back on, because we do see a lot of professionals come here that are starting to age out of the competitive sport, and there's a lot of them that have figured it out. They're working for the industry or they're coaching, but some of them don't, and they're scrambling to try to make a living.
That's good advice. On top of that, is there a book, a video, or an athlete or coach that maybe you'd recommend they follow for advice?
Well, Anneke Beerten is from the Netherlands. She's a world champion mountain biker. Started with BMX. She lives here now, and she's been a big impact on her community. She's helping teach and train kids and adults. Just an inspiration for our young girls in the sport. It's really fun to see her out and about every day,
Huh.
just helping Bike School Bentonville and helping other private group coaching, helping the Women of Oz. And the Women of Oz is an organization that has figured out the formula to get new riders, new female riders on a bike. It's really intimidating if you show up to an organized ride and everybody's on $7,000 bikes with their expensive gear. But the Women of Oz have created a really inclusive atmosphere where you come and you have a group of beginners with coaches. They have like 60 trained coaches on their staff that you can show up at one of their monthly ride events and get free instruction and learn how to ride. And then they have a big social. So if you're an expert, they send you over there to ride with the pro pack. And if you're a beginner, you go over here with the beginners and you find your people. And what it's turned into is these women find their riding partners that they ride all month with together and have their own little groups. And then they come together in a bigger group for the Women of Oz ride, and they have a social event afterwards. So it's been a really fun thing to see that. I mean, we need more of those type of groups, and then we have a large Hispanic population in the region. So we have Latinas BC, which is a Hispanic women's group that have done a really good job of getting that community out on bikes, kids and adults. And if mama gets on a mountain bike, the rest of the family does. So they're getting their husbands and kids on bikes. So it's worked out real well.
That's awesome. I didn't know Annika was in town. I didn't know she moved over there.
Oh, she did. Yeah, she moved from Orange County, California to Bentonville, well, at least a year ago.
Okay,
And
so it was recent. Yeah.
she's one of the locals now. Everybody loves her.
Nice.
I was actually over in Scotland at that trail conference, and I met with one of her countrymen from the Netherlands, and he said, oh, I know all about Bentonville because Annika's posting on her social media every week, and we all know her from, know she lives in Bentonville, and we follow her and get to see all the new trails. So she's quite an influencer.
That's cool. Well, I don't want to take up your whole day. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we sign off?
We welcome everybody to come here and just enjoy the sport of cycling. This is a community, and that's what makes us so special. It is the buy-in from state government down to city and local government, county government, but it's just the community themselves. You got to come here to experience the community and the volunteerism for anywhere from trail maintenance to getting kids on bikes is huge. It's really something special to experience, and it's no one person, or people that have done it. It's a whole network, and it's hard to explain how magical that is when it happens.
It's happening.
Yeah,
It's awesome. Where can people find you on the web? Do you have any social accounts where people can connect with you?
you can track me down. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, but the best way to see me, just come ride the trails. I'm out there. You'll see me.
Nice. All right. Well, Gary, I've enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you for the sunset cruise around Lake Leatherwood a few years back.
Sure.
Keep making mountain biking even better in Northwest Arkansas, and gratitude for taking the time to come on the podcast today.
Oh, I enjoyed it. Good seeing you, Rob.
This was a lot of fun, and to all the listeners, gratitude. You have just listened to Unpacking the Athlete.